Dear students, Assalamu alaikum. Today we continue with our lecture on consumer learning. If you recall, we had been discussing certain theories at that point of time, and we need to reiterate, reinforce the fact that these consumer learning theories are very critical for a marketer to understand consumer behavior and the process through which the consumer goes and buys a product. Sometimes people try to ask questions on why are we so involved in these theories that we are trying to understand. The problem is that the consumer's mind is like a black box, and we had discussed it in the beginning of the lectures when we started. In that box, things happen, but a marketer does not know what happens there. However, what he can try and do is to understand how consumers learn and how consumers through the learning process come to behave so that he can or she can influence these points where the thinking process are being induced in the consumer's mind. At that point of time, we had suggested that the implications, the strategic implications are very wide in each of these theories. So you can apply these theories in trying to develop good strategies to convince the consumer to buy the product that belongs to your firm or your company. Now again, at that point of time, we had been discussing the classical conditioning theory, which we started from, which is also known as the Pavlovian theory. And we said he was a Russian psychologist, and he had tried to use animals to show how learning takes place. At that point, we had discussed certain concepts about conditioned stimulus and unconditional stimulus and a response. And we suggested that by pairing these together, the conditional and the unconditional, and at a point of time when you remove the unconditional stimulus, the response will start happening towards the conditional stimulus. And that example we had given was regarding the meat and the bell. Now, unconditional was the meat, because anytime the meat was produced, the dog will have saliva come into the mouth, which is quite normal. So there was no requirement of trying to teach the dog. He was doing it instinctively, which is कि उसके अंदर की ये तबीयत के अंदर से था. Now what he started doing was that every time he would feed the dog, he would ring a bell. Now this bell becomes the conditional response. Chunke these two were associated together, at a point of time after repeated experiments, the meat was taken away, the bell was rung, and the dog was behaving in exactly the manner that he would behave if there was meat available. Now this was the starting point of a process which was known as conditional classical conditioning, which means you are only instinctively developing certain behaviors. From there we came to the new Pavlovian theory, which suggests that there is something more to this classical conditioning. The person associates definitely, but it is through a process. That means it's not directly instinctual, it's not from instincts, but there is a learning process involved in which by repeatedly associating, there is a reinforcement of positive thought coming into position. So positively, when you keep giving a reinforcement, which is positive, and the person recognizes this positive response, then only the behavior will take place. So the new classical theory was introduced, and we had discussed certain examples. However, in this lecture, I will try to make sure that we get better examples there so that we can understand the distinction between plain, simple, classical theory and the new Pavlovian. Now, within this new Pavlovian theory, we also recognize three very strategically important concepts. Now, these three are, which you must remember, relates to repetition. How many times can this conditioned stimulus be brought into position so that response can occur? Number two was stimulus discrimination or stimulus generalization. These are two concepts. One is कि वो स्टिमुलस बार बार जब रिपीट होगा तो उसकी जनरलाइजेबिलिटी बढ़ जाती है और उसकी वजह से कई कंपनीज उस चीज को इस्तेमाल करते हैं, बिकॉज once the conditional response systems have come into position, then it becomes very easy for companies to launch products within the same brands. Now remember that brand के खिलाफ जो response था या brand के मुकाबले में जो response था, that is known as unconditional response. मिसाल के तौर पे सोनी, आपने उसको सोनी को इस्तेमाल किया, you have been satisfied with it. Now this brand और उसका जो response है satisfaction के through या उसकी क्वालिटी के हवाले से, that is in position now. So unconditional response is taking place in terms of your thought process, which says it's a good product. And now any other product which is launched within the brand will respond to this unconditional system. Now the new product that you are launching is a new stimulus coming into position, which is the conditional stimulus. और response क्या है कि immediately the thought is कि ये जो product होगा ये भी उसी quality को होगा. Now इसी base के ऊपर we have already suggested that number of आपके computers के ऊपर Intel Inside जो लिखा होता है उसका मकसद ही ये है, या Microsoft का जो Windows का symbol है उसका भी मकसद यही है. However, इस चीज को याद रखते हुए we need to know कि कितनी दफा repetition होगी तो उसका असर कब जाया होगा. Now इसके अंदर there are a number of theories, but we should understand कि over a period of time advertising wear out takes place. मिसाल के तौर पे we keep seeing the same ad, slowly we lose interest, and this concept of interest and cues and stimulus we had already discussed in the last chapter. अब क्या होगा कि जैसे जैसे वो एडवर्टाइजमेंट रिपीटेडली देखा जाएगा उसका जो इम्पैक्ट है वो आहिस्ता आहिस्ता वेयर आउट हो जाएगा. तो कंपनीज क्या करती हैं, नॉर्मली व्हाट दे डू इज कि या तो वो एडवर्टाइजमेंट में कॉस्मेटिक चेंज ले आएंगे. कॉस्मेटिक चेंज क्या है, उसके पीछे फिगर चेंज हो जाएगा, उसका बैकग्राउंड थोड़ा सा चेंज हो जाएगा, शायद मॉडल को चेंज कर दें लेकिन मैसेज वही रहेगा. On the other side, sometimes they take substantial change into the advertisement. अब substantial क्या है कि they normally have the basic concept of the message there, but उसका पूरा जो conceptualization है वो change कर दें. ब्रांड वही रहेगा लेकिन उसको किसी दूसरे अंदाज में या दूसरे तरीके से किसी डिफरेंट यूएसपी के थ्रू, सेलिंग पॉइंट के थ्रू उसको दोबारा पेश किया जाएगा. अब इसी पोजीशन के अंदर थेरीज कहती हैं, research suggests that there is a rule of the thumb, which is the 3-point rule, which means कि पहला एडवर्टाइजमेंट रेपिटेशन जो है उसमें से जो पहला है वो अवेयरनेस क्रिएट करता है. दूसरा एडवर्टाइजमेंट जो है वो अगर एक इंसान वही इंसान देखता है तो उसको रेलेवेंस समझ आती है कि ये जो प्रोडक्ट या ब्रांड ऑफर किया जा रहा है उससे मेरी क्या रेलेवेंस होगी या मेरे लिए उसमें क्या रेलेवेंट चीज है. तीसरा वो बेनिफिट दिखाता है कि अगर आप खरीदें तो ये आपको बेनिफिट मिलेगा. Now, given all these frameworks, we have to recognize that these are strategic implications which are very relevant from the concept that we have brought out in the case of Pavlovian, which is classical or neoclassical conditioning models. Now, like I was saying, neoclassical model, this is also called the cognitive associative learning. Why we call it CAL, which is C-A-L? उसकी वजह यह है कि दोनों में जो मैंने फर्क I was trying to explain to you is basically in the area कि वहाँ डायरेक्ट रिस्पॉन्स आता है, लेकिन कोग्निटिव एसोसिएटिव लर्निंग के अंदर एक प्रोसेस बीच में आ जाता है जिसमें एक्सपेक्टेशन पैदा हो जाती है. वो ये है कि जब आप अनकंडीशनल रिस्पॉन्स लाते हैं और उसके बाद उसमें एक कंडीशनल स्टिमुलस डाल देते हैं, मिसाल के तौर पर जैसे मैंने ब्रांड का एग्जांपल दिया, तो उसके बीच में जो गैप है वो एक्सपेक्टेशन का आता है. वो है, सोनी का एग्जांपल ले रहे थे, सोनी हैज प्रोड्यूस्ड अ गुड ब्रांड प्रोडक्ट व्हिच इज लेट्स से अ टेलीविजन. नाउ सोनी लॉन्चेस अ न्यू प्रोडक्ट अंडर दैट सेम ब्रांड नेम, तो लोगों की एक्सपेक्टेशन हो जाती है, एंड देयरफॉर देयर इज नो डायरेक्ट रिस्पॉन्स टू इट, बट इट कम्स थ्रू एक्सपेक्टेशन बिकॉज एक्सपेक्टेशंस आर दैट द प्रोडक्ट इज गोइंग टू बी गुड. So it will be again reassociated with the original brand. Now, this where we have been discussing the logic of this, and we were talking about कि उसकी reputation होती है, उसके अलावा उसमें generalizability आती है, और फिर डिस्क्रिमिनेशन होती है. सो हम इस वक्त बात कर रहे हैं ऑन स्टिमुलस जनरलाइजेशन और उसकी एप्लीकेशन की जो स्ट्रेटेजिक एप्लीकेशन. वी वर टॉकिंग अबाउट कि व्हेन यू हैव अ जनरलाइजेशन तो ऑटोमेटिकली किसी भी प्रोडक्ट या ब्रांड का थ्रो बैक इफेक्ट होता है उसके दूसरे प्रोडक्ट. अब इसको अप्लाई कैसे करते? अप्लाई करने के लिए द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट एरिया इज व्हाट वी कॉल, एंड वी हैव सीन दैट, मी टू प्रोडक्ट्स. व्हाट आर मी टू प्रोडक्ट्स? दे आर कि जो कॉपी करते हैं, जो ब्रांड लीडर्स होते हैं उनकी कई चीज़ों को वो कॉपी कर लेते हैं, उसके पैकेज को, उसके डिज़ाइन को, दो दे आर नॉट द सेम ब्रांड. द आइडिया इज दैट व्हेन a consumer goes to the shop, because he remembers certain aspects of the good brand, their Me Too brand will also be picked up. And more than these Me Too products, there are also some retail products or brands which we call private label branding. For example, there are certain companies which, like in America, there is this Walmart, which is a very large retail shop and outlet, जो पहले अपने retail outlets में ब्रांडेड प्रोडक्ट्स रखते हैं. मिसाल के तौर पे कोका कोला है, पेप्सी है, दे कीप ऑल ऑफ देम देयर. बट व्हाट दे हैव स्टार्टेड डूइंग इट from that point of time onwards, they have developed their own private label brands which are actually Walmart Cola. यानी कि कोका कोला तो है but this is called the Walmart. तो उनकी जो बोतलों का डिजाइन है या उनकी पैकेजिंग का डिजाइन है वो तकरीबन जो ब्रांड लीडर्स हैं उनसे मिलता है. So this is very commonly being used as a very strategic input to the usage of classical theories. Now we are coming, और उसी के नीचे we have this concept, and I think I should discuss this concept with you, कि इसी को इस्तेमाल किया जाता है in terms of two concepts which are very critical. One is called family branding and the other is known as umbrella branding. Now these two concepts have to be distinguished, लेकिन इस्तेमाल वही है. मकसद क्या है? एक ब्रांड है, उसके साथ वी विल क्रिएट एक्सटेंशंस. सो एक प्रोडक्ट कैटेगरी है और हम एक्सटेंशन करेंगे उस प्रोडक्ट और ब्रांड के अंदर. सो तीन किस्म की एक्सटेंशंस की जा सकती हैं. वन इज प्रोडक्ट लाइन एक्सटेंशन. प्रोडक्ट लाइन एक्सटेंशन बेसिकली इज कि एक ही तरीके के कई प्रोडक्ट्स हैं which are sold under the same brand. For example, soap. Now you have a bar soap which is used for face washing, bathing, so and so forth. And then you can have a gel, a bathing gel or a liquid soap. So we can see that normally there are many companies which are doing it. Lifebuoy is a good example. It started with the bar soap. Now it's gone into liquid soap. Then it has gel. Then it has shampoos and so on and so forth. These are when you extend the product line within the same category. Now, or the same product kind. So you go into that extension. The second is product form extension. Now, product form means कि आप उसकी form change कर देते हैं. मिसाल के तौर पे you can have different colors. Most probably you will have different sizes, different but the brand stays the same. So you are trying to, within the same category, you are you're bringing different positions altogether. You can have a bottle which is 2-ounce bottle, you have a large family size bottle, and you have a jumbo bottle and so on and so forth. The third aspect, which is basically category. Now, in terms of category, we suggest that एक ब्रांड एक मार्केट में सक्सेसफुल हुआ, एक सेगमेंट में सक्सेसफुल हुआ, तो अब what the marketers do is to use the same brand in a totally different category of products. So you can move to a different category. छोटी सी example जो we have taken it before also, Sony की, they started, their popularity grew from Walkman. Now they are into television and they have gone into so many other brands and products. Same is the case with companies. We have got a very good example in the cosmetic range, L'Oreal. Now, L'Oreal was actually a successful brand in the women's cosmetic area. But now what they have done is they have launched cosmetics for men also. Same is the case with Neutrogena. Again, a cosmetic brand which was initially targeted for women have developed a range of or product categories which are specific for men. For example, they are now producing shaving creams, shaving balms, deodorants, and so on and so forth. So you can, but the name Neutrogena is the one which is what we are saying is stimulus generalization, because it was successful in one category, so it can be successful in the other category. इसके जो logical outcomes हैं, we need to note those. Number one, it is much easier to have more product extended within the same brand because it's cheaper that way. However, on the other side of the picture, we should understand कि अगर quality consistency नहीं होगी या उनके जो benefits हैं उनमें consistency नहीं आएगी, तो this logic could fail. So you have to be very careful when you carry out brand extension. Now, another research suggests that that brand becomes more successful जिसमें categories ज़्यादा हों. यानी कि if the product or the brand has similar products, तो उसमें extension create करना इतना successful नहीं होता, or it's not that easy, so much as a brand which has got a number of categories working. So because people start associating with the concept with quality और उसकी generalization जो है फिर वो फैलती है and extension उसमें आसान हो जाती. And that is the logic of stimulus generalization, which actually stems from, like I said, the new Pavlovian theory, which is cognitive associated learning, because expectations ठीक हो जाती हैं लोगों की with those brands or products extensions. So we tend to expect that it will be the same quality, or like I said, the expectation must be met. If there is a gap between expectation and the resultant result of that purchase behavior or whatever behavior, then we will find that the whole concept will fail. And therefore, it is very important to keep noting that we do not make these two kind of mistakes, that is consistency in quality and also the relevance of the brand extension. So these two things are very, very critical strategically to understand how things move. Finally, within this category, we discussed stimulus discrimination. Now, this is the opposite of generalization. Generalization का मकसद जो था वो था किसी एक चीज को इस्तेमाल करना, उसके जो हेलो इफेक्ट है उसको इस्तेमाल करना. But if we look at the strategic environment of marketing, we find that there is too much of information flow. Since segmentations are becoming more difficult and products are more and each one is trying to communicate a message, it becomes very difficult because there is too much of generalization taking place. एक product से दूसरे product में बहुत थोड़ा फर्क है, तो वहाँ generalization जो है वो consumer को confuse करती है. When that happens, it is strategically important that we try and bring out a stimulus which is totally discriminating from everything else. And this is where we call positioning becomes critical. Now, positioning का concept जो है, we started with this when we started the lectures, that strategically positioning is the final stage of strategy in marketing. Let me recapitulate on the issue of product line extension and form. You see, the issue in marketing is that one goes into the other. For example, if you increase or extend the form, it will increase the product line. So कई दफा लोगों में confusion हो जाती है to try and differentiate between exact line कौन सी है कि product line कहाँ extend हो रही है और product form की extension कहाँ take place कर रही है. Just to help you out in this, we should remember that finally it is product line extension, लेकिन उसके तरीके फर्क हैं. एक तरीका है जब आप सिर्फ एक प्रोडक्ट को उसके साथ मिले हुए एक रिलेटेड प्रोडक्ट को लॉन्च करते हैं, तो वी टॉक अबाउट एक्सटेंडिंग द प्रोडक्ट लाइन. एग्जांपल टू मेक इट मोर क्लियर इज, लेट्स से यू हैव अ लिक्विड, क्लीनिंग लिक्विड. नाउ डिश वॉशिंग लिक्विड हो, मिसाल के तौर पे एक गुड पॉपुलर ब्रांड इन अमेरिका इज मिस्टर मसल. नाउ सेकंड दे लॉन्च्ड within the same line, they launched the what you call the sink cleaner. Now, sink is where you normally wash your dishes, and then once you have done that, you normally clean the sink and it is done. Third line extension they moved into was multi-purpose cleaner, which means the same cleaning liquid could be used for a number of purposes. On the other side, we had suggested that form में shape change कर जाएगी. The thing stays the same, but उसकी category change कर जाएगी. So that is, but in the overall configuration, it is product line being extended through different forms. Now, I was also then talking to you about product discrimination, which basically suggests that given all this kind of messaging coming through, all kind of stimuluses being developed and moved into the market, the positioning concept becomes very, very critical. Marketers therefore require to try and develop a stimulus which will differentiate the product from all the others that are available. Now, this is not an easy job, and it requires a lot of issues which have to be configured by the marketer so that finally he should be able to totally distinguish himself from the normal category of products that are available. Ab isi hawale se we were discussing two other concepts. We talked about family branding and umbrella branding. Now, ये दो concepts काफी logically linked हैं, लेकिन you have to be able to distinguish between the two. जिसमें हम कहते हैं family of brands, वो umbrella branding के हवाले से आता है. मिसाल के तौर पे P&G है, लीवर ब्रदर्स हैं, इनके मुख्तलिफ ब्रांड्स हैं, मुख्तलिफ प्रोडक्ट्स और उनके नाम हैं और मुख्तलिफ ब्रांड्स हैं. P&G के मिसाल के तौर पे शैम्पूज के अंदर you will find Head and Shoulder, Pert Plus, Wash and Go, and so forth. Now, what is happening is that P&G has a different brands, but the overall umbrella is of P&G. Same is the case with Lever Brothers. They have Dove, they have Lifebuoy, and so many other products like even Clear. They are all products which relate to or belong to an umbrella brand, which is Lever Brothers. On the other side, we have one single brand going through all the products, where this is a family brand or a brand of complete product families. Now, Sony is an example where you find television also with the name Sony, Walkman Sony, whatever you think about, camera Sony. So we have a different categorization. लेकिन इसके नीचे जो thread है, जो चीज इसको systematically apply करवा रही है, वो वही concept है stimulus generalization का. और इन्हीं चीजों के अंदर we have to be very clear as to how best to utilize the abilities of the product and the strength of the various brands to be able to extend our product lines and extensions. उसकी वजह मैंने आपसे कहा था कि लोग एक ब्रांड के नीचे अगर ज़्यादा कैटेगरीज ऑपरेट कर रही हैं तो वहाँ उस ब्रांड की स्ट्रेंथ बढ़ती चली जाती है. Now, ये जो एक टॉपिक है, how brands are managed and how brands operate and how brands are strengthened, ये एक totally separate course है which normally is taught under strategic brand management or brand management. But उसके नीचे जो underlying thinking processes हैं वो यही consumer behavior के हैं which are related to how people tend to associate various thoughts and come to a particular decision. Now, यहाँ तक तो हमने जो discussion की थी वो की, but we should not forget that this is not the end of the learning theories. We have 2 or 3 more learning theories. For example, we have instrumental learning theory, we have observational learning theory, then we have cognitive learning theory, and the final one is involvement. We will now take one by one. अब इसमें जो इसी के development of theories के अंदर जो next online आती है, that is known as instrumental. अब instrumental भी काम किया गया था animals के साथ ही, लेकिन थोड़ा फर्क है. फर्क ये है कि एक में डायरेक्ट रिस्पॉन्स ले रहे थे, उसमें किसी बिहेवियर को रीएनफोर्स करने की कोशिश नहीं की गई, यानी कि इट वाज अ डायरेक्ट 1-to-1 रिलेशनशिप बिटवीन द स्टिमुलस एंड द रिस्पॉन्स. सिर्फ जो कॉग्निटिव एसोसिएटिव लर्निंग है उसमें एक इंटरवीनिंग वेरिएबल को डाल दिया गया. इंटरवीनिंग का मतलब है जिसके थ्रू काम होता है, तो वो इंटरवीन करता है किसी भी दो चीजों के दरमियान. सो स्टिमुलस एक वेरिएबल है, रिस्पॉन्स दूसरा वेरिएबल है, और उसके बीच में जो एक्टिव सिचुएशन आती है वो है एक्सपेक्टेशन की. बट इंस्ट्रूमेंटल में थोड़ा सा फर्क है. वो क्या है? दैट इंस्ट्रूमेंटल में द आइडिया इज दैट द स्टिमुलस एंड रिस्पॉन्स आर देयर, बट ये ट्रायल एरर से आता है, ये डायरेक्ट नहीं है. ये लोग एक्सपेरिमेंट करते हैं, ट्राई करते हैं, और चूंकि हर ट्राई पे एक रीएनफोर्समेंट पैदा होती है जो नेगेटिव हो सकती है या पॉजिटिव, और उसके बेस पे लर्निंग बिहेवियर पैदा होता है. मिसाल के तौर पे वी सी This is basically linked with Mr. Skinner, an American psychologist, जिन्होंने एनिमल्स को, बर्ड्स को ट्रेन किया. और अब हम अगर बाजारों में जाएं तो वहाँ we see these what do you call, the monkeys or the parrots trying to perform certain tasks, even goats and elephants. Every animal is being trained in a particular manner. करते क्या है कि once the dog or the animal or the bird goes and does the thing which is correct, which is the behavior which is desirable, तो उसको एक अवार्ड मिल जाता है, उसको खाने के लिए कोई चीज दी जाती. तो वहां एक्सपेक्टेशन नहीं, उसमें रीइंफोर्समेंट का कॉन्सेप्ट आ गया. अब रीइंफोर्समेंट का कॉन्सेप्ट रिपीट किया जाता है कि किसी भी क्या नाम है इन्फोर्समेंट बिहेवियर को लाने के लिए आप बार बार उस चीज का उसको रिवॉर्ड देते हैं. अब रिवॉर्ड का इशू जो है वो बड़ा थोड़ा समझने की चीज है कि रिवॉर्ड हमेशा पॉजिटिव ही नहीं होता. अवार्ड जो है वो नेगेटिव भी हो सकता है. मिसाल के तौर पे आपने किसी चीज को टच किया और उससे झटका लगा या शॉक लगा, तो ये भी रिवॉर्ड है आपके बिहेवियर का, लेकिन ये नेगेटिव है. अब इसमें भी दो किस्में हैं. वन इज नेगेटिव रीइंफोर्समेंट, एंड वी विल डिस्कस दिस today in a little bit of a detail so that we understand how to continue with developing consumer expectation in the line that you want to take. दो चीजें हैं नेगेटिव के अंदर. पॉजिटिव तो हमें समझ आती है, वो ये है कि आपने कोई चीज की और उसमें आपको फायदा हुआ, पॉजिटिवली यू आर reinforced, so you will act in the same direction. बट नेगेटिव का क्या इशू है? नेगेटिव का ये है कि आपने एक चीज की, उससे आपको अच्छा महसूस नहीं हुआ, यू डिड नॉट फील सेटिस्फाइड. अब ये नेगेटिव रीइंफोर्समेंट हो गई. उसकी वजह से बिहेवियर क्या होगा कि आप अवॉइड करेंगे उस चीज को खरीदने से. तो मकसद क्या है? और इसी तरह जब आप एड्स देखें तो यू विल फाइंड एड्स जिसमें फियर का कॉन्सेप्ट डाल दिया जाता है. इंश्योरेंस के एड्स हैं जिसमें दिखाया जाता है कि अगर जो फैमिली का अर्नर है, खुदा न खास्ता उसकी डेथ हो जाए तो उसकी फैमिली पे क्या मुसीबत आएगी. नाउ व्हाट इज बीइंग इम्प्लाइड देयर कि ये डेंजरस इसका इम्पैक्ट है, तो बेहतर है कि आप इंश्योरेंस खरीदें. सो मकसद क्या है कि वो बिहेवियर को मोल्ड कर रहे हैं. बाय यूजिंग फियर दे आर एक्चुअली ब्रिंगिंग द बिहेवियर इनटू लाइन विद द प्रोडक्ट परचेज. आपने ऐड देखा होगा, बच्ची घर आती है, उसके सर में जुए हैं, तो व्हाट हैपेंस इज कि उसको स्कूल में लोगों ने रिजेक्ट किया. सो माँ को ये एहसास होगा कि द चाइल्ड हैज गॉट हर्ट, और उसका जो नेगेटिव रीइंफोर्समेंट है उसको हर्ट से बचाना होगा. सो द बिहेवियर विल बी टू ट्राई एंड बाय अ प्रोडक्ट विच विल एलिमिनेट दिस इशू ऑफ लाइस. सो अगेन फियर कैम्प किया गया और फियर से एक बिहेवियर की तरफ डायरेक्शन दी गई कि आप ये कर लें. नाउ दिस कैन हैपन इन अ नंबर ऑफ एड्स. आपने देखा होगा एक बहुत अच्छा एड पाकिस्तान में भी आता रहा है कि वो क्रिकेट का शॉट मारता है, छिक्का लगाता है, and then he raises his hands to you know for applause, and the whole field around him falls and faints. वहां भी यही कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ एम्बैरसमेंट का लाया गया कि एम्बैरसमेंट इज नेगेटिव, और चूंकि एम्बैरसमेंट नेगेटिव रीइंफोर्समेंट है तो आइडिया ये है कि उसको इस्तेमाल करके बिहेवियर लाया जाए उस प्रोडक्ट खरीदने की तरफ जो प्रोडक्ट मार्केटर ऑफर कर रहा है. Now, this is one aspect of instrumental, what do you call, reinforcement, which is basically negative. अब इसको हम differentiate कैसे करें? punishment से. punishment का मकसद basically is to stop a person from behaving. उसका मकसद किसी नए behavior को लाना नहीं होता, किसी existing behavior को block करना है. तो we take punishment as a behavior stoppage system and negative reinforcement as a behavioral direction system. और उसका मकसद यही है कि जो लोग कोई काम कर रहे हैं उनको इस तरह से negative reinforcement दी जाए which is similar to the positive reinforcement कि वो behave करे to buy a product. So both the things, positive and negative reinforcement का जो logical end है वो है एक खास किस्म के behavior की तरफ ले जाना. Again, cigarette smoking, या आप environmental pollution को देखें, all these things have a singular impact which is created, that negative fear is created, और उससे बिहेवियर को मोल्ड करने का रास्ता निकाला जाता है. दिस इज व्हाट वी नॉर्मली हैव इन टर्म्स ऑफ इंस्ट्रूमेंटल what you call learning process. और इसकी एप्लीकेशन अगेन काफ़ी हैं in the marketing system. We normally tend to develop more instrumental frameworks by मिसाल के तौर पे let's take an example. आप होटल में जाते हैं, चूंकि मैंने कहा ये रिपीटेड परचेज बिहेवियर्स का रिक्वायरमेंट है और उसमें वो टेस्ट और एक्सपेरिमेंट्स हैं, और चूंकि इंस्ट्रूमेंटल है इन द सेंस के आपको बार बार कोई चीज़ दी जाती है अवार्ड के तौर पे, तो वो बिहेवियर अडॉप्ट किया जाता है. तो इसका इस्तेमाल कई तरीकों से किया जाता है. आप मिसाल के तौर पे व्हेन यू गो टू अ सलून, और वहाँ हो सकता है ब्यूटी सलून है, यू हैव टू जस्ट गेट योर हेयर कट डन, लेकिन अच्छे सलून्स के अंदर आपको चाय भी ऑफर करेंगे, कॉफ़ी भी ऑफर करेंगे. मकसद क्या है? टू बी एबल टू कन्विंस यू that there is a strong relationship between the person and the outcome that is associated, and the outcome is to repeatedly come there. अब इसका अगर आप गौर करें तो इसका डायरेक्ट लॉजिक क्वालिटी से नहीं है, लेकिन उन चीज़ों से है जो एक्स्ट्रा की जा रही हैं फॉर द पर्पसेस ऑफ ब्रिंगिंग कस्टमर सेटिस्फैक्शन. इसीलिए इंस्ट्रूमेंटल जो लर्निंग का प्रोसेस है वो कस्टमर सेटिस्फैक्शन को बढ़ाने में, टू इंक्रीज द कस्टमर सेटिस्फैक्शन, इट इज नॉर्मली यूज्ड. एंड द लॉजिक इज you repeatedly come into the same purchase behavior. A number of examples exist. In many hotels, when you go, you are offered a free basket of fruit. Logic, uska koi ताल्लुक stay के साथ नहीं है, लेकिन it is kind of creating a further relationship which becomes important in terms of instrumental learning. Now, as we were talking about instrumental conditioning या instrumental learning, we have been able to understand कि उसमें trial and error के base पे the result that occurs to you is a response out of a number of choices. अब हम इसको practical application में we try and figure it out. I've given you some applications, but now we look at the detailed ones. Let's take an example. You go to a shop, you visit a number of shops. आपको एक shop में एक jean आपको पसंद आ गई which fits you very accurately. Now what you have done is it has satisfied you. कईयों में गए होंगे, you might have tried one or two shops, bought jeans, they do not fit you well, you do not like it, so this is a negative reinforcement. Now therefore you will avoid going to those shops again. In this new shop you go, you find a product which you like. Now what is going to happen is every time you visit this shop and every time you get satisfaction from the product, the association becomes stronger. Now this association becomes stronger by repetition. But like we said, we have already discussed that कि ये जो repetition है और satisfaction है, ये ख़त्म भी हो जाती है, wear out कर जाती है. हमने advertising के हवाले से बात वहाँ की थी, but now we are going to talk about actual behaviors में क्या होता है. एक concept है extinction का. Extinction का मतलब है totally ख़त्म हो जाना, यानी कि वो रहता नहीं है, वो जो behavior है वो बिल्कुल ख़त्म हो जाएगा. और दूसरा है forgetting का, यानी कि भूल जाने का. Now, if we will try and make it clear with the same example. Now, अगर आप उसी product के, उसी shop में दोबारा जाते हैं for a product, और या उसी branded shop में किसी और जगह पे जाते हैं और वहाँ आपको वो satisfaction नहीं मिलती, अब क्या है, वो process of extinction शुरू हो गया. आप किसी और दुकान पे जाते हैं उसी ब्रांडेड शॉप की, क्योंकि हम ब्रांड के हवाले से और फैमिली ब्रांड्स के और उस अम्ब्रेला के हवाले से बात कर रहे हैं. तो आप गए वहाँ, आपको फिर वो प्रोडक्ट पसंद नहीं आया, तो दोबारा आपको रीइंफोर्समेंट हो रही है नेगेटिव. एज यू कंटिन्यू दिस नेगेटिव रीइंफोर्समेंट एट अ पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम यू विल स्टॉप गोइंग टू द सेम ब्रांडेड शॉप किसी भी जगह पे. हुआ क्या कि ओवर अ पीरियड ऑफ टाइम द कॉन्सेप्ट हैज totally eliminated itself out of your system. Now since the association has been totally closed, this is called extinction, यानी कि ख़त्म हो गया, वो association ही ख़त्म हो गया. So now you will not go into that behavior. On the other side of the picture, there is something known as forgetting. वो है, you liked a place, you remember its good qualities, you went to that place repeatedly, but then you traveled out. For example, you went to Malaysia or UK for 1 or 2 years, and during this period you forgot it. Now when you come back, this association is not there. अब क्या हुआ कि वो association अच्छी reinforcement तो थी, but because of lack of use वो forgetting में चली गई है. तो दो में, एक में extension में reinforcement जो है वो negative हो रही है, दूसरे में आपने इस्तेमाल नहीं किया, therefore there is to be a distinction between the two. Now अब दोनों के लिए क्या जरूरी है? For developing a forgotten reinforcement थी, the ad would be able to take you back into time and suggest how happy you were when you visited that place. So या वो product इस्तेमाल करने पे time का इस्तेमाल करते हैं. दूसरी तरफ focus होता है कि इंसान को constantly, repeatedly reinforcement आती रहे positive, so that the person keeps coming back for that response. कई examples हैं. Normally आपने cereal boxes पे देखा होगा कि cereal box के ऊपर coupons दिए होते हैं. Coupons क्या दिए होते हैं? वो कहा जाता है कि अगर आप 5 coupons collect कर लेंगे तो हम आपको एक नया डिब्बा जो है वो free दे देंगे cereals का. या there are so many other forms. Loyalty cards. The more you use a particular thing, for example, credit cards में this is being used now very commonly, that if you repeatedly use the credit card, you will get points. Those points will be accumulated, and at the end of a point of time, you can use that for some purpose of purchase or whatever. Even mobile phone companies are doing the same. The more you use something, the more you will accumulate certain points which you can later on redeem. Similarly, airlines do it. Airlines frequent flyer mileage देते हैं, which means you have flown, let's say 1,000 miles, you will get the benefit of 100 miles. So if you keep flying and you accumulate this, let's say to 10,000, you can get a free ticket for 1,000 flying time. मकसद क्या है? So that you can repeatedly come back again and again for that purchase purpose. Now, we were trying to talk about instrumental conditioning, so usme we were looking at some strategic applications and implications of this instrumental learning. American Customer Satisfaction Index जो बनाते हैं या जो develop करते हैं, according to research that they have carried out, they have suggested that a number of marketers tend to believe that customers are more satisfied if the prices are low and there are more product choices available. They say, no, that's not correct. What is important is that, and they've added one more thing. Yes, prices should be equal or good. Second, there should be a number of choices. Third, there should be a personal connection between the marketer and the consumer. और यहीं से the concept of relationship marketing comes out. You most probably would have heard consumer relationship marketing or relationship marketing. This is not the place to discuss this, but briefly what is happening is that people, the marketers, try and connect with the consumer at a different level. They want to make the person more closely associated with their product or brand, and they do it like I gave you the example, like hotels do it. What they do is they give a welcome basket hoti hai. Sometimes they give them various kind of chocolates are given or placed in the fridge. Free drinks are given. Same is the case with beauty salons, and so many other companies do it. When the people are waiting, they are provided something extra. Why? Because people understand that waiting makes a person feel dissatisfied, but to make it less important or the waiting time less important, they normally offer drinks and special connections. Now, लेकिन चीज याद रखने की जो है कि when you are implying these connections और एक customer आपसे connect कर भी जाए, तो issue is that if he ever becomes dissatisfied once even, it will be very, very strong reaction because he has become totally loyal, and now if he finds dissatisfaction in the product, it will have a very major impact on his behavior. And obviously a dissatisfied customer will go and tell more people than a satisfied customer. We understand that marketing mein this is a normal theme. So what do we do when we believe that this possibility exists? Outside in the world, people have started giving points for customers who get negative experience. अगर किसी जगह पे वो प्रूफ कर दें कि उनको ये जो एक्सपीरियंस है वो उनको नेगेटिव हुआ है, So what they do is company has an award system which compensates them through awards. So rather than replacing something or whatever, they will tell them कि you bring the product back, we will give you a new one at discounted price. मकसद क्या है कि अगर वो आदमी satisfied नहीं हुआ या शख्स and person is not satisfied, we will try and provide him with certain incentives so that the negative frame has been taken care of, so that extinction does not take place. Because remember, we had talked about it, extinction happens when reinforcement is lacking or positive reinforcement is lacking. On the other side, we also discussed forgetting, which is basically lack of use. So we need to bring that into conceptualization. Now, since we have discussed these connections, we also need to understand कि relationship marketing में किया कैसे जाता है, ये reinforcement कैसे की जाती है. अब reinforcement के लिए आप regularly एक चीज करते चले जाएं customers के साथ, तो वो एक regularly feature बन जाता है. You go to a hotel, the minute you are checking in, a drink comes along. This is total continuous reinforcement. Now, like I was saying, fixed ratio has been suggested. What it basically means is that instead of giving regularly or every time, which is total reinforcement, what you tend to do is to give it through a fixed ratio. Let's say every fourth purchase, you will get a benefit. So we suggest that, or in the marketing, if you look at it, some products are said, if you buy 4, you get 1 free. So this becomes a fixed ratio reinforcement. And the final one that we have is a variable ratio. Now, variable ratio is a totally different concept, which actually in the marketing is suggested is the strongest in continuing the behavior and avoiding the extinction. Now, what happens in a random or variable reinforcement procedure is that you never tell the person when he will get a benefit. The idea is that people will continuously come back again and again and again. Normally, lotteries में या कह रहा मैं lucky dip के अंदर, this is what is used. What you normally do is that you say, okay, any day a person goes into the shop, he's given an award. So people tend to anticipate this award system and the reinforcement takes place. और यहाँ याद रखिएगा, reinforcement is to go back to the place where there was some quality and there was some importance in the quality. Because like we said, advertising भी wear out कर जाती है, same kind of behaviors भी wear out कर जाते हैं, so people tend to go into something new and you have to create this new thing through these procedures. Now what we are looking at is कि reinforcement, ये जो हम बात कर रहे हैं, we are talking about after the fact reinforcement. So you purchase something and you are being reinforced. But in many cases, many cases, particularly in the service industry, people need to have reinforcement done before they go and buy. Now that reinforcement is a little tricky kind of a marketing thing, and you need to be very clear as to how this reinforcement can be brought into position. But a simple example, if you recall your marketing lectures in the marketing management or principles of marketing, say something known as lost leaders. Now, for a retail shop, this is very common. What they do is they will take one of their popular products और उस पे sale लगा देंगे. So what they do is they will give a drastic sale cost discount on one particular type of product. And what happens is that because the consumers will be coming in to buy that one product, and the retailer knows कि जब वो दुकान में आ गए या retail shop में is there, he will tend to buy more. Now, therefore, this concept of reinforcement is that you suddenly have a sale on a particular product. So people start watching various advertisings and various things waiting for sale to take place. So let's say normally what happens is internationally, कोई भी occasion ho. So there are normally sales there. For example, Father's Day sale, Mother's Day sale, Christmas sales, Teacher's Day sales, and so forth. और लॉजिक क्या है कि उस तारीख को you are already waiting and reinforced, the idea is there, so you go and try and buy. But since you are supposed to be buying only one gift, the idea is further expanded कि उस एक गिफ्ट के खरीदने में you will tend to buy more. So एक logic है in trying to apply these concepts in thought processes. So we have discussed the lost leader concept here. Now what we are looking at is कि ये this learning process, ये reinforcement process, ये होना कैसे चाहिए. There are two concepts which are important, and do remember that we are coming to the end of our lecture. Once I finish this, I'd like to just mention a concept which will recapitulate the whole thing, and then in the next class we will take up further theories. Now, अब बात कर रहे थे on the learning concept of ये reinforcement. Now, there are two concepts which are involved here. One suggests that mass advertising होनी चाहिए, and therefore mass learning का concept या reinforcement होनी चाहिए. That is basically what we call mass learning, and this is against the learning which we call distributed. That means it's distributed over a point of time or over a period of time. दोनों के logical strategic implications हैं. Mass is normally done so that you can make an impact, immediate short-term impact in the market, maybe as a competitive move, or maybe if you want to go for market penetration. Now, remember, like I said, okay, in the next section, I will be picking up a little bit of a detail on the various strategies that we use in marketing. For example, market penetration strategy, market development, product development, and diversification. Just a brief point so that we know where we can apply these. Now, in case of mass learning, it is considered to be the one which we normally use for creating penetration in the market. But the distributed learning, which is spread over a period of time, is normally associated with long-term learning process and is considered to be more stronger in terms of the concept of extinction. Now, small, short, mass impact will last for a short time and the impact will then finish off. But in terms of developing the market, and that is why I said I will discuss this growth matrix and then see कि जो advertising का जो हम तरीका लेते हैं उसका learning के साथ कहाँ logical connection है. Or we talk about when we are trying to develop a market, then we need the advertising to be spread over a point of time. Now, here we are thinking in terms of the application of instrumental learning. Now, before I finish off the lecture, a point which I like to bring into position, because we have been discussing umbrella marketing, we have discussed about family branding, we have discussed generalization of stimulus, discrimination, and all sorts of things, including this area. The idea is that companies, when they move into brands and brand extensions and they try and use single brand to launch more, तो वहाँ एक basic concept marketing का चलता है which is called economies of scope. Now, there is a distinction between economies of scope and economies of scale, and this is the right time to suggest that economies of scale is linked with economies that you get. That means lower the prices if you are producing more. So scale is on the basis of production. Scope is when the marketing expenditures are distributed over larger number of products. So when you do umbrella branding or family branding, or when you're using the stimulus generalization concept and you're trying to create more sales through single advertising use, the logic is that you are trying to create economies of scale. Now, having brought this whole thing into position, remember, in the next class, we will talk about other learning theories which I mentioned earlier, observational learning, for example. Then we have cognitive learning. Then we have also what we call involvement learning. And then finally, at the end of the lecture, we'll try and measure this customer learning process. So there are 4 that we are left. At the end of the lecture, let me go back quickly over the things that we have discussed. We started with what we had been discussing in the last class, which was basically classical, conditioning theory. Then we moved into instrumental, along with a number of implications that we had discussed for all points, so that we are clear on the subject matter. Why do we learn and teach the consumer learning process? Now, once we have done that, we were moving in towards basically how much of reinforcement should take place, what is the nature of reinforcement. There is a positive reinforcement, then there is negative reinforcement, and then there is reinforcement schedules that we talked about. That means total or continuous or fixed ratio, as well as which is called interval ratio, or also which is variable. That means you never know when the reinforcement will take place. Finally, we have discussed the concept of mass or distributed learning, and both have got a singular relationship. One is related with short term, the other is related with long term. And as I said, we will discuss the Ansov model a little bit with the learning concept and then see how these two fit in. In the learning concept, we said mass is for penetration purposes normally used, and for market development, we talk about the long-term situation where we are going to develop a whole market for our product and brand. Now, this brings me to the end of it. I hope you have a nice day, and thank you very much.